Welcome to Upper Pylon 2, where we normally bring you episodic reviews of Deep Space Nine, but right now we're jumping on to give you our very brief, immediate reactions to Star Trek Discovery, which premiered tonight, and it's just the Mats bringing you some hot takes right off the bat.
Right. So literally, I just got done watching the two episodes maybe about 10 minutes ago. Haven't even really put my thoughts into words yet, so much being able to talk about them. But we're just going to wing it here because I wanted to get this excitement and this sort of passion on tape as soon as it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the first time that, the podcast medium is out there for new Star Trek where we can just start talking through things as fans all together. And it's really exciting. And boy, is it a good episode to have these types of discussions where we just start talking through things because they
So
throw a lot at you.
I'm just going to say it right off the bat. We have talked on numerous occasions in our normal podcast when we're discussing DS9 about what I'd like to see from Discovery in the future, taking the good points of DS9 and then, maybe polishing up the things that didn't quite work then that could work better now, because that's what we love to do on the show, sometimes rewrite the episodes. And from, again, just pulling from the sample size of two episodes, I can't say for certain, but a lot of what I wanted, in fact, almost all of what I wanted was in these two episodes tonight.
Yeah, and you can see from the previews of coming up episodes that this tone and the stuff that you're getting in this is going to be the running thread of the show. It certainly looks like Deep Space Nine explored how Starfleet and the Federation has a little bit of darkness kind of underneath it. This show is showing you that the individual people are probably going to have some deeply differing philosophies on stuff, and it's not just perfect.
Well, right off the bat, like, one of the things I always loved about DS9 and I wanted to see continue in a future Star Trek series, conflict among Starfleet officers. I never bought into, if you listen to me talk, the whole next-gen idea of how no one's ever mad at each other and they all get along just fine and no one ever disagrees with each other. Here, I mean, the center of the first episode is all about interpersonal conflict, not just conflict between the Federation and the Klingons.
Yeah, I mean, that was the genuine shocking moment of the first two episodes. Like, if you listen to our previous podcast where we looked at the trailers and talked about stuff, I made certain predictions that I bet some big name actor will come on and be killed off very early in the run. And we got that. So I wasn't shocked with that. The part that I found genuinely shocking is that our main lead, Michael, attacks her commanding officer at a very early point where it's like, oh, wow, this is absolutely nothing we've ever seen before. Yeah, we might get some verbal sparring, but this was a very genuinely surprising thing because you're programmed as a Star Trek fan that, no, this would never happen. And that was like super refreshing and very, very interesting to see. And it turns out that wasn't just, if again, we're only looking at two episodes, but they don't hit the reset button at all with that. It looks like that's going to be a major thing throughout it.
So, Matt, I don't know, like, how far, because this is a brief discussion, but whether or not we want to touch on spoilers or not, because I know people are going to be watching this over the next couple of days. So, but it's really hard because so much happens in these first 2 hours. Like, just as a 2-hour pilot, taking the two episodes and counting them as the pilot, it's really early to tell, but could this be one of the better, if not the best, pilot of any of the Star Trek series?
Yeah, well, man, we just got to assume people are listening to this having seen the first two episodes or are willing to be spoiled at this point. But I was actually thinking that exact thing about what is this and how does this rank with other first episodes in the series. And assuming that this type of quality and story goes on, I think this is a true mission statement for any of these, or for the series, and it should match anything that we see coming out from any of the other Star Treks, because it really gives you a voice right off the bat, and it's super strong. And I gotta think this is going to be about the best opening of any of the episodes or any of the series.
Again, with the acknowledgement that the recency effect is well in play here. There's just so much that happened in these two episodes. I think for me, thinking back to the other pilots, I like the other pilots, but this was so well paced. I thought that many people were fearful that the look and the aesthetic and what they were going for was going to be more JJ than original Trek. And I don't know what you thought, Matt, but I thought it was a very, very nice marriage of the two aesthetics, actually. The classic Trek is definitely still in there because, especially the first episode, it's a very slow burn, character-driven episode. And the second half is, you get your huge JJ-esque spectacle. The visuals are definitely JJ-esque. But I just thought it was this nice, cohesive marriage of the two that very nicely updates Star Trek on the small screen for the 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just, like it or not, this is what Star Trek has got to kind of look like now, more or less. It's just modern aesthetics in television. You just have to do this.
But it's not like the JJ films exactly. I mean, you and I disagree on them, but like the thing we can agree on is that sometimes those films are so fast paced you don't even have a chance to catch your breath. Even when these two episodes kick into action mode, I never feel like I'm out of breath or trying to keep up watching them. I feel like it's this perfect balance of like JJ level action spectacle with classic Trek character moments.
Yeah, for the most part, I would agree. I think things got a little muddied in the action stuff. I think that could have. This is where I'll put on my critiquing hat. I thought that did get a little fast and furious, and kind of got a little actiony lost in there. That said, it's not a big deal. But back to your point about the recency effect and the bias there, I'll kind of disagree because this is a totally different Star Trek than we've ever seen before. And because
it
of
feels
that
way.
Yeah,
And yet it doesn't feel wrong.
Right. But because we're seeing such an immediate, like, this is going to be the story, no other Star Trek really kind of offered that. We were hoping Voyager was offering that kind of a thing, and it just never really played out. I got to imagine this series is going to keep this idea going through as the running idea for at least this season. Voyager immediately went away from the good that they laid in that first episode. This series, I can't imagine, is going to fall those same traps. So I'm pretty confident in saying that this is the strongest opening to a series. We'll see if it really ends up continuing to be as good, but it's, again, such a strong voice to the beginning of the series. I think this has got to be way up there with like the Cage kind of stuff, which is just, the Cage totally set the tone for an entire genre of the stuff. This is setting the tone for the series, when all too often I'm not so sure the others did it quite as well as this did. Again, this is just making the assumption that the rest carries on where this left off.
No, I think I agree with you. I just, I people know that I tend to get swept up in the hype, and the recency effect is more of a problem for me than it is for you. But yeah, I definitely think that this is setting up the tone of the rest of the series. And the best part of it is that, and the reason I think that we can say that with such confidence, is that the way that the second episode of the two that aired tonight ends, it doesn't, there is no reset button. It is the first two episodes in a nutshell are looking at Michael Burnham's time as first officer on the Shenzhou under Captain Philippa Georgiou, played by Michelle Yeoh. And it details the kind of basically what ends up turning out to be the Shenzhou's last mission, fighting this new Klingon fleet that is seeking to unite the houses and declare war on the Federation. A lot of conflict ensues, both internally within the Shenzhou and externally with the Klingons. And throughout the course, Michael Burnham makes a choice to go against the captain and try to take over the ship in order to save and prevent a war. But what ends up happening is that the war starts, and while she later she kind of redeems herself in the sense that she and the captain work together to board and take care of the leader of this movement, Captain Georgiou dies, and at the very end, in a complete 180 from the stuff that we talked about that bothered us with For the Uniform, Michael Burnham is stripped of rank and is probably on her way to New Zealand.
Yeah, the this is like something totally different because in any other Star Trek version, the Chris Pine Treks are guilty of it just as much as any of the TV series. We are programmed as this audience to expect that, oh, she did something naughty. By the end of the episode, she goes over there, raids the ship, and now she's in command of the Shinzao. Oh wait, no, actually she's gone. And that is something.
She's gone, and so is the Shenzhou, because you see everyone evacuating it at the end.
Right. And that's just that right there for that might not affect like a normal everyday off the street viewer, but as a Star Trek viewer who's kind of savvy, you kind of go, "Oh, wow, that is different. The reset button is not necessarily in play here." And again, I don't know how much you want to get into spoiler stuff with previews for coming up episodes. I mean, it's out there. It shows that this still keeps going.
Oh yeah, I think this whole 15 episode first season is going to be the redemption arc of Michael Burnham.
Yeah, and I wonder how much it'll be really interesting because it did come out that the original plan was to make this an anthology show in that every season is a different standalone story with a reset cast. So I would have loved to see this as just that standalone cast where we don't know if she's going to survive or not, because now that it suggests that she'll come back or this show will come back a second season, it's taking a little bit of risk away. So it's like, man, I would like to see them go even crazier different on the show.
I'm sure they will, because at some point I saw one of the writers tweeting regarding tonight's episode, without giving spoilers away, that no main character is safe. So
good.
A lot of the people that we've been following and getting to know on Twitter, they could end up on the chopping block by the end of this first season. That's the vibe that I got from one of the writers.
Well, we saw a bit of that already, but like the last point that I kind of want to hit upon is it's very interesting that at no point do we see the USS Discovery in the first two miniseries, as pilot movie episodes here.
No, this is the last.
Very interesting.
The first two episodes are basically the last mission of the Shenzhou.
Right, and you made the point before we started recording that this is like almost think of it as the Babylon 5, or not Babylon 5, excuse me. Battlestar Galactica pilot movie, where this is the trail.
All the setup.
Yeah, just all set up, and now we get to see the fallout for the actual meat of the series. And I like that setup because we don't even establish the Discovery as an element in the story yet.
Not only that, but much like the BSG pilot, our main character, in that series is main characters, but at least our main character here is at their lowest point. We think it could go lower. I'm sure it could go lower, but right now things are looking not great for Michael Burnham.
Right, and like I said, not everything was. I don't want to be just completely glowing about the episode entirely. We got to put our critic hat on a little bit. I thought the editing was a little wonky at a couple points here or there.
I wasn't really paying attention to the editing, to be honest with you. I'll take your word for it, but I'll go. I'm obviously going to watch these episodes again.
Yeah, but come on, we're Star Trek fans. We know all of these shows have some bumps in the road right off the bat.
I'm not saying I'm not saying that this is flawless. I'm just saying I didn't catch that particular flaw, but now I'll go back and look for it.
Oh, it's one of those things that might bug one person and then just not another. So it's a pretty solid start to the series.
I think I'm excited to see where this goes. And I mean, that's the function of any pilot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reclamation project of the Klingons, as far as I'm concerned, and we're already off to a great start there.
Let's talk about that, because I mean, I know that you have a famous anti-Klingon bias, but I gotta say, as different aesthetic as they are, they still have the spirit of the Klingons, but they get the fear factor back. I really like these Klingons.
And it gives them some motivation. There's some very relevant real world kind of parallels there about what their motivations are. You're seeing some young guy who's lost, has no family, and is desperate looking for some purpose, and he reaches out to the crazy religious zealots. The bones of Star Trek are all there. It's just under a glossy cover, top coat. Everything you want is there. And I do like that. It sure seems like all the explanation they gave for why Klingons look different in this is BS. They're just different.
We don't know that though, only because I mean, like I saw someone complaining about something else or something that they said would be explained in the why the panels would be different. Like, did you expect that they would explain that in the first episode of the first season?
Well, but they do say that the Klingon ship we see, the sarcophagus one, has been off on its own for hundreds of years, and that these are separate Klingons that have split off. Well, we see 24 other ships show up with 24 different houses from Kronos, and they all look the same. I like it. I like that they look different.
No, I like that they look different too. All I'm saying is like it's not entirely without of the realm of the possibility that some episode will comment on about why they look this particular. I don't know. Maybe they're doing experiments with themselves to try to get their old look back.
Oh, I don't want them to even bother to try and explain. Get the nerds angry. I'm sorry, but it's at that point.
But they're already angry. I mean, and
that's what they do.
But at least most of the feedback I've seen tonight has been super positive, and really, I mean, the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, that was the haters' last hope. And with those being good, all they could do now is complain about their own things and the pay service and all that crap.
Yeah, and then even the pay service. Like I kind of said early on, once you start seeing the names associated with this series, I became much more concerned about the service rather than the quality of the show. But you can see that the rest of the world, the reportedly buying Netflix for the rest of the world and all the Canadian services and all that made up for whatever might be happening here. But then on top of that, CBS has already apparently thought it's quite successful with how many people signed up. So even then, the paid service stuff, I bet, is largely being overblown by a loud, annoying component online.
Right. I mean, right now I'm just looking at Rotten Tomatoes. It is sitting with 17 fresh reviews, only 3 rotten reviews for a score of 85, and a mean average score of 7.27 out of 10. And the critics' consensus states, although it takes an episode to lift off, Star Trek Discovery delivers a solid franchise installment led for the next generation, boldly led by the charismatic Sonequa Martin Green. Now, I mean, I know you want this to be brief, but like, let's talk about the cast members that I think we're going to see in the future. Again, really like Michelle Yeoh. She's one of my favorite Bond girls, and I think she's a great action hero. And I hope that they find some way to use more of her. I know she's dead, but like, I would like to see her more of her and Michael's past because they had such good chemistry.
They show they are not afraid to rely on flashbacks.
Right.
Not linear storytelling here. So yeah, it's definitely possible, right?
Right. But the two characters that are definitely moving forward with us are Michael Burnham and Lieutenant Saru, because we've seen a lot of them in the future trailers. So talking about the series lead, this is the second time in Star Trek history where the lead of a series has been a woman. And I already really like her. I think she, people have criticized her and called her acting flat, but she's playing a Vulcan, or a human who was raised by Vulcans. So there's going to be some of that flat affect, but you see that broken by the end of the second episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk too much from my point of view with the character stuff, because you got to look at it from a distant standpoint to see what her overall arc is.
No, but just for right now.
Yeah, but to judge her too much on where she starts as a character, I don't know. She's fine. I'm interested in watching the story that she's going to tell. And same thing with Loka. He's fine. He's interesting right now. He verged on possibly annoying with the cowardice kind of trait they brought up. But they
means Lorca's the captain of the Discovery.
Oh yeah, sorry, Lorca. Yeah, but that even was like they played it okay in that episode, and let's see how that plays out. So it's like everything at least minimally gave me a desire to see more of it.
Yeah, the cautiousness thing about Saru could be annoying, but what I liked about his character in particular is whenever he would do something like that, the writers would immediately give him something to do that like showed you rather than told you that he knew how to do his job competently. Just because he's cautious doesn't mean he's not a good officer.
Right. Real quick, I am perusing the Rotten Tomatoes reviews. So, Den of Geek says it's going to be a grim, dark war show slapped with a Star Trek brand, having little to do with the brand's core ideas.
And I just wanted to point out for the record that Den of Geek gave a 4 out of 5 to the Orville.
Well, sure. I'm not even talking about that, but I don't know how you can say that since the Star Trek ideals are all through this, and to judge it by where a story starts, but where not how it ends is just insane.
Again, they gave a near perfect review to the Orville. I think they had their minds made up before the show even started.
I mean, you see that same kind of philosophy when you looked at reviews for like Game of Thrones. To say that that's a super sexist show that's misogynistic and just enjoys, beating down on women is like, well, you just showed you have no idea what you're talking about because you didn't read the books. The women are now all the most powerful figures in the show. So it's just like, come on, stories have to begin at a point. It doesn't mean that's where they end up. So it's just whatever.
I have a feeling that a lot of people who may be wary after watching these 2 pilots should wait for next week, because I have a feeling next week is like we said, this was the BSG mini-series movie that sets up the show. Episode 3, I imagine, is what the show is going to be,
Right, but I suspect Captain Lorca on the Discovery is going to be a major adversary, the surprise major adversary in the show. You think it's the Klingons, but it's going to be the hidden enemy, the person that's not fighting the war on terror correctly. It's making it worse.
So you think he's going to be like the militant racist?
I wouldn't be surprised, because that's what they're showing is like the Klingons are now zealot, religious holy war type of an approach, right? Or
they're all using Kalus's name to justify their actions in this one, as opposed to just like fighting for quote unquote honor.
Right, and I think the thing is, it's like that's where the subversive nature of the show is going to come in, where it's like the human is out to try and end the war on something that I think is going to be moral dark grounds, and our character is going to have to try and find the true Star Trek ideal in how do you end this war without going down the dark path. Would she stand up for what Cisco did, and like that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the interesting thing.
Well, here we're speculating, but like obviously from the trailer for next week and the rest of the show, it looks like Lorca's the one that gives Burnham the second chance, right?
He gives her a second chance. Like, well, you are now, the.
But could it be like what you're saying? Like, oh, this person obviously has a grudge against the Klingons too. Let's get her into this crew and have her help me with my plan to take them all out.
Right, and then he misjudges because when she did that, when she kind of went against the rules, it got her very motherly figure killed. Her sort of surrogate mother killed. So I think that's what the real meat of the show is going to be. You think it's going to be this grim, dark war show like this reviewer says. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think that's where the subversive nature is going to come in.
And it just, stuff like that bothers me, because they seem to imply that dark means not Trek. And, if you're paying attention, and I'm going to be harsh here, if you're actually paying attention to this show and what was being done in these first 2 episodes and not just crossing your arms the whole time, you saw Star Trek in there.
Yeah. Oh, it's talked all through it. The reflections on what it means to be human. You're seeing that with, our main character all through it. She's going to be that Pinocchio, that Data, that Spock character all through it. And
she feels different than all of them too, which is good.
Right. Yeah, right. But that's going to be that kind of classic Star Trek character, what questions what it means to be human. And then it starts out with a war, but this is not going to be just a war show. It's got to be like, how do we end this? And that's going to be very interesting.
And we know that this is going to be contained to a single season, because they said that they only want the Klingon War to go on for this season, and that if they get another season, they're going to be dealing with, both the fallouts of this and another season-long story.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait till they introduce the Romulans next season and make them look totally different, and everybody blows their minds over the diameter of their nostrils.
Well, no, they'll be blowing their minds for the fact that they're not supposed to meet the Romulans and see what they look like until Balance of Terror.
Oh, whatever. What do you say, Matt? I'm interested in going forward in the show. They did what they had to do. What more can we say?
We'll wrap this up, but needless to say, I am super excited, and I'm so grateful that, after 12 long years and just, going through the ups and downs with the preparation of going into this series and everyone kind of just talking so much crap about it before they even see it. I'm glad that, now that the reviews are coming out, now that the fans have actually seen it, finally we can make those people we'll never make them shut up for good, but they have no more legs to stand on. Now they're just being petty.
Well, it's more and more obvious. I'm afraid of change. That's all whatever it is. Because right now these 2 episodes are good. We'll see if they continue on, but
they gave me no reason to be nervous. I'll say that much.
Yeah, right.
I heard that episode 3 is written by Nicholas Meyer. I know that man has some good ideas in him that still haven't been mined from the last 2 movies he did.
Well, he has a tall order because there's still a huge amount of this cast that hasn't even seen the screen, so we got to be introduced to a lot of new characters.
Yep, that's true, but if you're going to pull anyone from Trek's past who I implicitly trust, it's Nick Meyer.
Sure.
So I'm excited. This is a good time, and it feels good after 12 years that Star Trek is back.
Right, and I'm sure it's going to be an ever-present presence through our UP2 reviews coming down in the future. There's no way that this won't color our reviews of episodes down the line, or, at least us talking about new...
No, and this is going to change our Star... this is going to change Star Trek podcasting forever, right? At least for the time being. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and maybe because it's hard to do double reviews of double shows, but maybe what we'll end up doing in the future is when season 1 wraps up, we do a special episode where we just talk about season 1.
Yeah, hopefully I'd be game for that one.
But also, if you guys are wondering, I know we've taken up most of the time, but I don't know if I heard back from Chris, but I definitely heard back from Blair. Blair loved it. Blair absolutely loved it.
Chris, I think, is probably going to start watching in very short notice, or, very short time.
And I very much doubt with him he's not going to like it, at least.
There's enough in there for any, a guy like him to certainly latch on to.
I kind of, that's my thing, is I kind of know what he likes and what he doesn't like, and I think there's enough there that he'll like. But Blair's in, I'm totally in, Matt, it sounds like you're in, and I'm really excited to see where this goes.
And guys, if Blair's in, you haters out there will like the show. So with that, Matt, shall we wrap it up and get this uploaded as quickly as possible?
Let's do that. Thank you so much for joining us for this emergency session of UP2. Again, just was so excited to share our initial impressions on Star Trek Discovery, and it gives us very much a bright hope for Star Trek's future. And please join us again next week as we continue going through DS9 Season 5 and trying not to make any more Discovery references in between.
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that.